Hey everyone, today I'm gonna do a detailed tutorial on how to install the Perun Hybrid in a CYMA Platinum M4. Fair warning, this is a pretty advanced install compared to some other airsoft tech things you can do. First thing you do, break down the buffer tube. You can take the spring out. You can see here I'm using a Canadian peso. You take that rear plate off. Next, use a punch, knock out the pin. Don't knock it out all the way because it has a retention spring. You can slide your shell apart. Use a T6 Torx bit on that mag release. And just reassemble it so you don't lose the screw or the spring. I'll take a punch, knock out the rear pin and the small pin right above the trigger. There's another pin here on the bolt catch. See, I put some tape down just so I don't scratch the gun. I think that was a T9 for the motor plate. Don't adjust that big screw in the center because that's preset from the factory to have the right motor height. You can take the contacts off, take the motor out, and then take out the two screws at the bottom of the grip. Now the gearbox should release from the lower receiver, the wires with it. There you can see it's all big screws on the bottom and short screws on the top with a couple Phillips heads. You can pull the gearbox apart. Just be careful so you don't lose anything. There's a lot of little springs and shims and whatnot in here. First, we'll remove the spring off the tappet plate, pull the cylinder out, and we can just start disassembling everything. There's your 3 gears here. Very greasy. Here's the trigger spring. That is the safety. I'll figure out how to get that off in a moment. That's the little thing that keeps your gears from moving backwards. And your last gear there. Take both of these out. This thing I'm unscrewing right now, you're not going to use that again. The Perun Hybrid is going to sit where that thing is. That function is for the original MOSFET. That's what allows it to tell where in the cycle the replica is. This selector plate here is not going to move until we get that safety out. But first we'll take out the original MOSFET. And here you can take out the safety from this side. It just pops off. It's a friction fit. Then you can slide the selector plate out. Now here's the Perun V2 Hybrid. Pop it in and it does not fit because we've got to grind out that post. So you pull out the old Dremel and turn it into dust. Degrease it, get all that dust out. Last thing you want is a bunch of metal dust in with your gears. And then you can see it fits perfect now. Just screw that in with the Phillips head that was initially holding in the other piece, which we no longer need. Now this is it's a magnet that attaches to the trigger. The instructions say to be gentle when you screw this so you don't strip out the threads. Just get them all snugged in. And remove any grease with some isopropyl alcohol. And for the CYMA Platinums, you're going to want to use the ICS sticker. Did some reading in the forums, and that's what works. And I'll show you in my testing later that it works for me. So I'm putting the trigger in. This little spring here has just got to go right on top of that shelf. Then we can start reinstalling that gear, the sector gear. And I'm only doing a partial reinstallation right now because in the manual it says to just put in the selector plate, the trigger, the sector gear, and then put it in the lower receiver, plug the battery in. And that allows you to enter a diagnostic mode where you can make sure everything's working okay before you get too far in the build and have to tear everything down. So I've just got a couple screws in the gearbox and a couple pins. You can see you can check the sensor readings by disconnecting the motor, and it'll has a LED in there and will give you readings based on what you do. These pages here are just from the manual. Feel free to pause them or screenshot them. So I'm got this green blinking light, which is good. Or is that yellow? I don't know. And red, blue, and white are the different selections. And those are working great. And then I'm going to test the trigger. It should be purple. Awesome. And once I spin that sector gear, it should flash green. Beautiful. If any of that stuff isn't working, you're going to have to move that sticker around. All right, so I'm just re-greasing the gearbox because I took all the grease out. Reinstalling the tappet plate and cylinder. Good times. That spring goes on the tappet plate. Stiff spring. That there's a little anti-backwards catcher. And there's, I believe that's called the bevel gear. And the other ones just drop right in. Here I am putting in the safety and the trigger. The trigger's got a little spring that sits in the gearbox. See me try and lift it in there. See, I'm holding down the tappet plate with the screwdriver because it's under a lot of spring tension. And I just put everything back together. It's easier said than done, but you can kind of poke around in the bearings and knock the gears into the right place. This here is the bolt catch. This is how it's installed. That little spring there slips underneath it, and you can tighten it down. This is the pin. It's got teeth on one side of it. You want to make sure you're, that's like the head of the nail, those teeth. Here I am installing the bolt catch and putting that pin back inside of it. The mag release. The motor grip. Just be careful you're not crushing the wires with those two lips there. And reinstall the spring with your Canadian peso. And put the back plate on. All right, that fits. Then put the buffer tube on. And it doesn't fit. That little opening does not accept that big splice in the wire there, which is a big problem. If I force it on, I'm just going to rip the wires. So, cut it off. Flux it. Solder it. Put some heat shrink tubing on it. And God damn it, no, it doesn't fit. All right, I had to shave that down. All Alright, so now that's shaved down, the splice is moved back, and it fits together. Put the two pieces of the puzzle together. Throw a battery in. And drum roll. Let's fucking go. All right, good luck doing it yourself. That fucking sucked.